In the last video, we talked about monsters and how to make them more interesting. But once you actually do roll that d20 for initiative, what makes a combat encounter interesting and fun for your players? Before we get into this one, make sure you hit that sub button down below. That would massively help me. And we're going to be looking at actual D&D combat and how you can make it more interesting for your players. And this genuinely is something I need to take my own advice on, because this has been one of my worst traits as a DM. One of the things that I am the worst at is making a combat encounter interesting once it has started. You can have all the lore, you can have all the documentation and things. In the last video, we talked about having folklore and surrounding these monsters with mystery and finding out that, oh, maybe it was this person who's turned into this because of this. But once you've rolled initiative, if you just say, okay, yeah, and I'm going to roll to hit you, yeah, that hits, that's 4 points of damage, yeah, okay, right, it's your turn, it becomes, once again, generic and not necessarily uninteresting, but it can become uninteresting if that's what the combat is like every time. You can sprinkle some in there every now and again, which are just, you are just fighting this, fight it, move on. But if you want to make your combat encounters more interesting, I have 4 or 5 tips here of how to do it. In fact, there's 5. So the first one, and the easiest one, is, let's say that you're facing a some sort of boss creature. Have minions, because the amount of times I've ran a combat and I've gone, this guy's really powerful, he's really going to be good against this party. But when you actually think about it, I mean, in our online campaign that I run, we have 5 level 14 or 15 characters. So when they're fighting against something, the one thing on its own is going to get absolutely blasted by that group. So if you put minions in, for example, in the last session we had in our online campaign, which is a different one to the one that I've been describing, the other one, this is much more high level, set in the same world, but the queen had been possessed by the spirit of the god of death. So she had an avatar of the death god inside her. She raised dead against them. So she raised multiple skeletons, and each time she raised skeletons, once they defeated them, they got a higher skeleton stat block, so they were more difficult to defeat. And it meant that it wasn't just everybody pummeling one person until the end of the combat. So minions are a really easy way to make your combat more interesting without really having to do much. Instead of just having 1 page open on the monster manual, have 2 and flick between them. Use these as well. This is a good little tip for you. These little, they're almost like post-it notes, but they're little tabs that you can stick into your monster manual. They won't damage the pages. But for example, when my other group were fighting ogres in the last game, an ogre with a load of goblins, I had one on the ogre page, one on the goblin page, and I could just flick between them using the little tabs at the top. So that's an extra bonus top tip for you. But adding minions in can just make the boss fight more interesting, because you aren't just all pummeling the boss. That's a basic one. That's an easy one for you to do. Everybody knows about that. The next one is multi-stage boss fights. This was, in this same combat, was also a multi-stage boss fight. So first of all, the queen, she looked ill, she looked tired, she looked sick. She had this weird staff that was new with a skull on it, and she had started to cast like necromantic spells at them, which they knew that was something that she never would have done if she was in her right mind. So they managed to cast Wall of Force on her in a dome and trap her in once they defeated the other things. Out of that Wall of Force appeared the avatar of Mortenius, who is the god of death within my world. He's a god of death that has half of his face is a white skull, half of his face is a golden skull, and he has a golden crown that crests over the top of his head. And he was about 2 or 3 times the height of the players. He was huge, and he burst out, and she was pushed to one side, and then they had to fight this avatar of death as well. So you had the minions in there fighting them, trying to stop them getting to the queen. She was trying to protect herself with them. Once she had been cast aside, this big boss came out, and then they had to fight that as well once they were already injured and hurt. So it gives you a bit of an extra dimension of when you're in a Souls game or a Souls-like game. For example, you're in Elden Ring and you're fighting a boss and you think, right, glad that's done. Out of the ashes rises another monstrous creature, and everyone goes, oh no, and they have to run back in and carry on fighting. It gives you that sense of, oh my god, what's happening here? So that's the second point, is multi-stage boss fights, which of course we all know and borrow a lot from video games as dungeon masters. The next one is secondary objectives. Now, two of the ones that I've done in that online campaign have been, can you stop a ritual before it happens? Can you start a ritual before the end of the fight as well? So, for example, the first one, can you stop a ritual? There was a cult of orcs in the desert who were using blood magic to summon devils from the hells. They were trying to summon Orcus, and the party had to stop the people who were making the summoning happen before Orcus was summoned. They didn't manage to, and therefore they had to fight all of these orcs, which were really high level, and Orcus, and barely got out alive. At some point, Orcus decided that he didn't want to die for some random orcs in the desert and disappeared home because he was starting to lose a lot of health. So can you get them to go, okay, well, in this moment, I don't want to just fight these people. There is a secondary objective. I've got to do something. Can I save these children from this burning shop? Or can I go and fight the gnoll that is over the road trying to kill somebody else? Like, make them think you've got split objectives here. Am I just going to go and fight and hit things? Or should I go and save people? And bringing morality into it always helps as well. Would their character make that decision? What would they do in that moment? And it will create a real sense of actual panic in your players of, what do I do here? Which way do I go? And of course, as well, the other one, when I was talking about the multi-stage boss fight with the skeletons being raised, they were trying the party to do a ritual to cast out the death god, and that's what actually made the death god come out when I said that before, is that they managed to finish the ritual. So they had to use their actions to do a series of successful arcana checks. The druid managed to get a natural 20, which counted as 2 successes, and they managed to get 5 successful arcana checks, which meant that they completed the ritual and cast out the possession, which meant they then could fight the second stage of the boss fight. So you can, like I've just said then, combine multiple of these situations into the one combat to make it more interesting. The next one then is unique encounters. So when I'm talking about unique encounters, that can be quite vague. I saw someone on TikTok/YouTube Shorts the other day talking about one that happened at an ancient statue, and there seemed to be some sort of time deformation there. Something was going wrong with time, and in certain areas of the boss fight, characters would be in a fast forward state and would get haste. Other times they would end their turn or start their turn in a area of the boss fight that is actually the effects of the spell slow are happening to you, so you have less actions, you have less movement, etc. So moving around the battle, and these zones would probably move as well, can create real tension and real thoughts of a secondary objective again, is which whilst I can run straight at that boss, I'll go through the slow zone though, and that's going to stop me being able to get there. So I've got to go around, I've got to make sure I avoid these objects. Anything that makes it unique, when you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, okay, what's going to make this unique here? Is it the terrain? Are we fighting on a mountainside and some people are higher up than others, and it's going to make disadvantage and advantage with that kind of range attack, which is a rule that I would employ in my games? Or is it on flat land, but you're on either side of a river and there's no bridge to get across? So are you trying to pull people into the river with Grasping Vine, with Thorn Whip, things like that? So adding unique encounters can be as much to do with environment and the map and what's happening on it than the actual creatures as well. And the last one is not everything has to be an initiative roll. You can have full stealth encounters if done correctly. So, for example, at my IRL campaign, the other one, when I talked about it in my previous videos, they fought some goblins and they didn't roll initiative until pretty much right at the end of the session because they weren't noticed by the goblins. Goblins aren't very intelligent. They had 7 hit points each. So even at level 2, these characters with a sneak attack, with a witch bolt, with that actually happened later on, but with just normal hits from the monk or a slice from the warlock's sword, you could take one down in one hit because they only had 7 hit points. So they were able to stealth around the map mostly until the point where they got the ogre involved, because the wizard witch bolted the ogre when an explosion went off. Everything went wrong at that point. But you can have whole encounters that rely just on your character's rolling stealth checks successfully and taking out creatures together and in sync. And it also creates a sense of battle tactics and the players having to work together to achieve their goal by tactically moving around to certain areas of the battlefield. Obviously, not everybody has minis, but I had a mini setup where there was so many different ruins, trees, there was a watchtower, there was loads of different things where realistically that would then allow your players to hide behind them to get half cover, 3/4 cover, or just to back up against it and then pop out and fire an arrow. It gives you a sense of not everything is just out and out combat. You play a video game, it's varied, isn't it? You have stealth missions as well as you have all out combat missions. So introducing something like that can really make it seem a bit different than just fighting normal enemies. So they're my 5 ways in which you can make combat more interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed spending this time in the tavern with me. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, get your comments and suggestions for more videos. Anything you want to see down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.